about dog training, my husband Ray, Damian, and Shane. And today we're going to give you the essential guide of having a new puppy or an adult dog. So we're going to get started and talk about how to prep for your puppy coming home. Damian, let's talk about puppy prep. This is my favorite part.
Yeah, that's super important, right? First of all, researching what kind of dog you want is a big one. That matches your lifestyle. Of course, every individual dog can be different, but generally speaking, the breeds are going to be somewhat similar, especially if you're getting a dog from a reputable breeder, which is possibly a discussion for a whole discussion on its own, but it's super important, especially if you're getting a puppy. You don't want to, you want a dog that from a place that produces a certain type of dog and consistently. So making sure that you've researched where you're getting the dog from, researched what kind of dog is going to suit your lifestyle. And I think something that people overlook, especially in a house that has, multiple people living in it, well, your family, your husband, wife, kids, is that everyone's on the same page, right? That you guys have already sat down and discussed how you're going to go about training this dog and interacting with this puppy, because consistency is key. And so you might have the best intentions and have everything laid out and planned, but then if everybody's not following along, it's not only going to be very difficult to get that dog where you want that dog to be, but it's going to be unfair to that dog, right? The dog's going to be confused as to what its job is or how to interact with people. So for me, the obvious ones are researching where you're getting the dog from and what kind of dog you're getting, what kind of tools and crates you want to get and all those good things, but also everybody's on the same page. Everybody's saying, this is how we're going to do it. This is the consistency we're going to have. And I think if you just have that, even if you're not, the most knowledgeable on the puppies, but everybody's consistent, that's going to help out a ton. So that's the biggest advice I would give people, is make sure everybody's on the same page.
I actually really love that. Just so everybody out there watching knows, we don't pre-plan what we're going to say. And that one was one that I didn't even think of that is so important. And we see that quite often, right? Where, we'll get husbands and wives maybe differ on that. So that's truly, that was a really great point. Shane, what do you think? What's a good puppy prep?
Yeah, I mean, Damian hit some of the things that I was thinking for sure, but another thing's just, I mean, like you said, people being all on the same page, because you can really ruin things there. But I also think coming home, just having kind of structure in place, an idea of your potty training routines and what that looks like coming home for that dog, just so you're not creating unwanted habits right away, because as soon as a dog learns a habit, it's a lot harder to untrain. So making sure you have your routines down and everyone's on the same page as far as those go.
Cool. One thing I want to add is a lot of people ask where should they put the puppy's crate? When you bring a puppy home, like, you should have put them in the garage, should have put them in the other room in case they cry. Where do you think the best spot to have a crate placed?
So for me, I think having a crate where you can hear what's going on is important in case, there's an issue. Not just because the puppy's whining, because that can be a problem in and of itself if the dog learns that, hey, whining and crying gets your attention. I think for safety, having a dog being able to at least generally be able to hear if something is going on is important. But that dog doesn't have to be in his crate in your living room or sleeping next to your bed. That can cause problems, right? The dog, you're going to hear everything that dog does. It's going to be, when it's in its crate, it's going to be overstimulated because there's so much action going on. That crate should be a very calm and collected place. It should be a place for the dog to decompress and rest, especially a puppy. They're going to sleep 16 hours a day or 20 hours a day or whatever. So I think a big mistake people make is putting that dog, right in the action, the puppy right in the action. And then of course the puppy's overstimulated. It's engaging with people even when it probably shouldn't be. It's not decompressing. If you're doing a little training and you put that dog in a crate and it's in the living room and there's all this action, the dog is just kind of overriding some of that training that we did and doesn't have enough time to consolidate that training. So for me personally, it's like, have that crate somewhere where you have easy access to it, and you can certainly hear if there's an issue, but it's the dog isn't right in the middle of all the action, right? And having it in your bedroom to start with is tough too, because you're going to hear every little scratch. It's going to hear every little movement you make, and that's not always great. So somewhere in an area where you have easy access, but the dog isn't overstimulated and constantly, being a part of everything all the time.
So similar, can you talk a little bit about, I guess, the crate itself? Like what do puppies need for space? And then also, I know I guess the big topic is potty training. How long does that typically take when we're dealing with a 10-week-old, 12-week-old puppy when they come home?
So for me, the crate the size is super important. Puppies grow, so our first instinct is to get a huge crate that the dog, when it's an adult, is going to fit in, but that can absolutely be the wrong way to go. The more space the dog has, the more likely and more willing it is to go potty in that space. So for me, the dog needs a crate, not a wire crate. Let's just put that out there. Let's not get the dog in a wire crate. It's just dangerous, and depending on the dog can create problems if it starts to try to get out. So let's get a solid crate, one that the dog can stand up and rotate in and has a little bit of room, but that's it. Dogs generally, depending on, as long as they weren't raised in kind of a dirty environment, generally don't want to be dirty. Even puppies, like, they generally don't want to go potty where they sleep. They will, of course, especially puppies, but the smaller the area, the less likely that is to happen. So a smaller, safe, solid crate is super important, because that's going to help you a lot with the potty training as well. And if we're going to touch on potty training, the major thing is routine, right? Number one is schedule. The dog goes potty before and after, or when it first comes out of the crate and before it goes into the crate, every time, first thing. So it's on you. That it's just about a schedule. There's no magic wand. There's no command you can give a dog to teach them be potty trained. It's about every time they go potty outside, it gets easier for them, and every time they potty inside, it gets easier for them. So schedule. And something I see a mistake people make is not managing a dog's water intake. Giving free access to a puppy is like letting a toddler slam a glass of juice before bed. If that toddler goes potty and it's pees the bed, that's on you, right? That's your fault. Same with a puppy. If a puppy has access to water all the time, you're not going to know when it last drank, and that's going to create problems. So you need to have a good schedule. Potty them after they eat. If your dog hasn't potty, if your puppy hasn't pottied in a while and you take them out and they don't potty, then they go right back in their crate, and 5 or 10 minutes later they go back out. You've got to get them on that schedule, and if that takes multiple sessions of doing that, that's fine. But remember, that moment that puppy is roaming around and hasn't pottied, it's going to go. So schedule is super important. Manage their food and water intake, and be aware of when the last time they went potty.
Awesome. Shane, what else do you give in terms of advice for potty training? I know when I used to train a lot of puppy clients, I always tell them to have a poop and pee log, because really what you're trying to do is guesstimate where are those windows where we need to get the dog outside before we have an accident. How much did they eat? When did they drink? Did they poop or pee when they went outside? If there are any mistakes, when did those occur? And what I did is just try to condense the trips outside even more. This is for the little puppies, like the ones that just got home. Their duration of holding it seems to grow with the longer they're with you. But initially, you got to prepare for that. I mean, it's a daunting task, and the more accidents you have happen, the longer the process takes. So, what other advice do you give to people?
Like what Damian said, I think routine, like I myself hand feed the dogs throughout the day, so I know exactly what's going on with them when I'm feeding them. I also offer water with every chance that I can with that, but that is all very monitored to when they are out, as far as that routine. And I think this all falls back on that routine of almost logging and knowing when you are taking them out. And my potty training structure is always, they get up in the morning, they go out to the bathroom. If they don't go out of the bathroom, they go right back into the crate. And that's even if they only go pee. If they don't go poop and pee, they go right back into the crate for structure. And I repeat that sequence every 15, 20 minutes until they go both. And then I give them a little bit more freedom. And over time, they learn that going to the bathroom means if I go right away, I get more freedoms. So they start creating their own little routine there. But, every couple hours, I tend to take them out and then let them make decisions there. And if they go, great, they get some freedoms. If not, they go right back into the crate. And then, water intake is to the times, and food intake is to the times that they are out, as far as I'm engaging and working with them.
Gotcha. David?
Yeah, just two things. Number one, to piggyback on what Shane said, I love that, like, that the dog doesn't get to engage or have, play or training until it goes potty, right? So the dog learns that, hey, if I go out and I go potty, that's kind of what gets me, what I want, which is super important. That's a great point. But also something that is a trap. And now there are extenuating circumstances or special circumstances that this may be different. If you're on the 40th floor of a apartment building, that may be different, but puppy pads are a bit of a trap, right? Because even if you're just teaching your dog, you're going to have to fade that out anyways. So you're teaching them it's okay to go potty. It's an extra step that I see a lot of mistakes, or a lot of people make. That's a mistake. Unless it's really difficult, or you're going to in a situation where you can't take them out that often. Sure, there's some situations, but generally speaking, do away with those puppy pads, because it's just going to be something else that you have to deal with. And even if you're able to fade that out, the dog's learning that going potty in the house is okay, even if it is pottying on the puppy pad. But the process of getting a dog to start pottying outside, once it's learned to potty on the pad, is tough. So I think that's a big mistake people make. Get rid of the puppy pads and schedule your potty breaks. And last, when I get a brand new puppy, I'm talking 8 to 12 weeks, I usually do set an alarm. Like, I'm going to get up and take my dog potty at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Not every dog needs that, but for me, I would prefer to do that and avoid having that as accidents, because every accident is a big step back. So that may be something just like a newborn child, right? Like, you might not get as much sleep for the first 4 weeks, but it's worth it. It is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, that is a super good point. We actually, at Coro Canine, for our employees, we offer a pupternity leave, because you are so right. It is like having a child. And I think that's something that those of you watching, to set clear expectations about a new dog or puppy, get ready. I mean, the first month or so is a lot of work, and it is whether you get a trainer involved or not. What do you guys think? This will be a good segue in between crate training and structure. Do you guys use exercise pens?
No, not for puppies. Like, not for super young puppies. Sure, maybe if they get a little bit older and have 4 or 6 months, possibly. But exercise pens is just teaching the dog that you're not that valuable, that, you got this exercise pen, they're going to throw toys and stuff in there. So when we talk about, training starts right away. The dog is learning whether you're teaching them or not. So giving them an opportunity to be like, you don't need me. Like, you're going to get to have all this freedom, toys and snacks without me directly involved, is like the biggest mistake that they make. So I'm not a big fan of puppy pens, especially for the first 6 months, and after that, most dogs are too big for them anyways. But it's less free time does not mean less fun time. And that's something people get stuck in their head, is like, oh, my dog doesn't have any free time. That's fine. All the fun time should be coming through you. I don't give a puppy any free time. There might be structured play. There might be structured, like, a chance for them to kind of investigate, but I'm a part of that. So puppy pens are also a trap, I think. And the dog you devalue yourself.
Yeah. What do you think, Shane? Do you use puppy pens or exercise pens at all?
I don't. I mean, I think Damian hit that right on the dot there. Like, I want the dog to view me as the most important playful thing that is around. And that is the segue to so many engagement exercises and a strong understanding, because it's gonna lead you to more successful outings and a stronger understanding if all of our engagement is focused on you and the dog and nothing else, because I need the dog to view me as the most important value in its life.
Yep. Which is a good segue into starting training as soon as you get the puppy home. And I think this is where a lot of people make mistakes too, is they just want to enjoy their dog. And so, they may not start training right away. But we think the minute you bring that puppy home, you should start training. So Damian, let's talk a little bit about what you advise clients the minute they bring their puppy home, what they should start doing.
So the first thing is, like, I've not met a 8 to 12-week-old puppy that isn't food motivated. So first thing, don't devalue your food and don't feed that dog in a bowl. Don't even buy a puppy bowl. There's no reason for it. That dog, they're eating such a minimal amount, relative, to an adult dog, that they should be working for all of their food. And what I mean by that is we're not talking about taking an 8-week-old puppy and leashing them up and having them, pressure them into sits and downs. But they should eat all that food from your hand. And for me, the first thing, day one, is the dog looks at me, reward, right? I might even start using its name. And the moment, that dog comes in and checks in with me, they get rewarded. That's number one. No free lunch policy. That just means that the dog works for everything, right? And they'll find value in it. If you do that, that dog's going to come out and just engage with you immediately. And then that's going to give you the key to all the training. Without engagement, training is not fun. It's hard and it's frustrating. But if your dog wants to work and engages with you, it's a blast. And to me, that's the fun time. That's the special time you get with your dog. When your dog's roaming around, not engaging with you, there's nothing particularly fun about that. But when my puppy's like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this guy's life, I want to be engaged with him, that's a special time you get with your dog. And so right off the bat, dogs learning, whether you're teaching them or not, I want them to start to explore a little bit with me and then engage with me and find that even all this stuff that's out in the world is super interesting and fun, but it's still not as good as my person. No matter what, my person is the most important thing. So you can start with name recognition and then just checking in with you, right? And then your next step for me with puppies and engagement and training is going to be luring and free shaping. Free shaping with a puppy is so much fun. You basically set up a controlled environment with some things that you might want your dog to engage with. So if you've got a place bed or, anything like that, a toy or something that he brings to you, you let that dog explore, and then you reward them for doing the things you want. It's a lot of fun, and the dog learns how to learn, which is an important thing. The dog learns how to investigate and be curious and get rewarded for that. So free shaping and luring right off the bat. You can get in 2 weeks, you can lure a puppy into almost every position. That dog's not going to know the command, but you can lure, a dog into a sit, into a down, onto a place, all of those things, even a little heel at 10 weeks old, right? You're not naming it and you're not expecting them to do it on command, but you're starting to shape that behavior right off the bat. And then when you're ready to actually start doing the bulk of the training with actually naming commands and using leashes and stuff, it's going to be so much easier and the dog's going to love it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell a funny story when we get done. But Shane, what do you usually advise clients the minute the puppy goes home? What do you tell them to do?
Same thing, like engage with you. That's the most important thing, and set a routine that's structure based, because the important part of this engagement is if the dog's out all the time, you're not going to get a whole lot of engagement. You have to create that engagement by creating separation. So it is important to have a routine where they do go away for a while, because if they're always out, there is no value in you. If they're always sitting on your lap, there is no value in you. So I know puppies are cute and they're fun to play with, but we want to start it off creating good habits. And I think the most important thing is creating that separation and creating that drive and engagement with you, which needs to be set as, we need to put you up. You can call it a nap time, you can call it crate time, you can call it whatever you want. And then there needs to be designated times for engagement and structure, because we don't want them to have free roam all the time and being by you all the time, because the engagement won't be as strong.
Yeah, just to dovetail off that, basically the number one rule I give to all my clients was the biggest mistake people make with puppies is you give them too much freedom too soon. Literally, when you want that dog that's able to roam around the house and just kind of do his own thing, they have to kind of be able to prove and earn that they're trustworthy of that. But timeline of that is, I would say, closer to 8 months to a year for most dogs before I'd have that full trust that they can kind of wander around the house unchecked and not have to be within sight. So when I say 100% eyes on dog, or the dog goes in the crate, that is the rule for puppies. And all this stuff we're talking about with puppies, ironically, will transfer over to an adult dog that you bring home from the shelter. If you use these same rules of thumb that you're bringing up a puppy with, It'll also help with an adult dog that's coming home. So I think that's really important to mention that, all this stuff that we're talking about puppies can be, kind of used in the same context with a rescue dog that you're bringing home that you don't know much about and just needs to reestablish baseline and structure. So you guys were talking about engagement. So what kind of engagement games or things that you can do with new puppies that will eventually lead to skills that you're going to ask them to do, like recall games and stuff like that, Damian?
So for me, a big one is, you can do a lot of recall games. So, toss a little bit of food and let them get it, let them roam around. And then the moment they look at you at first, reward, right? Start doing name recognition as well. So you start shaping those behaviors. You wait them out. Patience is key. We don't want to move in front of their line sight. We don't want to force them. We want them to learn that their choice to engage with us. So is what's valuable, right? That they're just choosing to do so. I think a lot of people kind of force them, so they just put the dog right in front of them and make them look at them, right? But instead, if you start right off the bat with that food and those engagement games, the dog's going to choose to, right? It may notice something in the environment, be curious, but then immediately be like, oh no, I want to get back to my person. So for me, I mentioned it earlier, but just especially for the first couple of weeks, that dog just looks at you. It's out and it looks at you. Mark it. Right. We talk about clicker and marker words and stuff, which is important. Mark it so the dog knows, yes, the dog knows it did something right, comes back and gets that reward. Free shaping behaviors, again, is a big one because that's how you're going to get the dog to just already have an idea. Even having a little bit of a distraction after a week or two, meaning like, whether that's somebody in the other room or somebody moving around and the dog's learning, hey, even though that's interesting, when I check back here, there's something more valuable. Toys can also be used this way. That's something else that we've been talking a lot about food, but having free access to toys makes engagement less, right? If the dog can play on its own and doesn't need us, I want to produce the toy and I want to put the toy away. That way it's a reward. That way they see me as the fun person and the fun thing in their environment. And you don't devalue that stuff. So, when you're playing with a toy as well, that it's all coming through you. And all this stuff takes a lot of time, but the quantity of time that you put in early on pays off in quality of time later. And so having them understand that play and food and all wonderful things, the things they find valuable come from you is super important. So toys are a great way to do that as well, and food. So dog checks in, great. Dog ignores something, loud noise or something else interesting, reward it. And then one last thing I'll mention as part of this is you got to control the environment. If the dog can run into every other room and you have to chase them down, or if you've got a bunch of people coming in and out that you can't really control and the dog's not ready for it, this isn't going to work. So you got to control your environment when you're working on engagement until you eventually get to a place where you can put a leash on them and then start taking them places where the environment's a little less controlled. But remember, you got to get the skills first before you got to practice before you need them. So you got to practice in a controlled environment before you get somewhere where you can't control the environment.
Yeah, Shane.
Just one more thing I wanted to touch on, like engagement games and stuff that I feel like is super important, especially if you do have dogs, even as like rescues and stuff. But this is why it's important to do these things when they're young. Is one, like exposure to like different surfaces, because you ever see the dog that goes on concrete and it's so scared to go on concrete. So really exposure as a young age to all different surfaces, whether it's dirt, grass, concrete, wood, bottles, water. So just, and that's engagement with you. You don't have to be in public or have people around for that. And another thing that I really like to do is young dogs, and I did it with all my dogs, is obstacle engagement. So just getting them over little obstacles, making them figure out how to get up on things without lifting them in. A lot of people struggle with their dogs getting in cars, or even at a young age to an adult age. It all starts as a puppy. So really enforcing obstacles and surfaces. So as they get older, it isn't something that creates fear.
So on top of all of this, we already had a whole episode on socialization, or Damian, you'd like to call it, was exposure training, or somebody brought that up. Jeremy, I think that was, but either way. So on top of all these things we're talking about, we're in the middle of exposing these dogs to all sorts of sights, sounds, smells, textures, everything. So you start to get the picture of how much work is involved and how many things you have to really check off that list to get this dog, to a point where you would say he's bomb proof. You know what I mean? He's not disturbed by anything. He's super engaged with you, and he starts to understand what's expected of him. So I hope people at home realize what they're thinking about doing is when they want to get a puppy, they really need to understand that there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the background if you want to avoid the problems that come about later on. Now, you guys mentioned free shaping. Could you explain, I guess, when you transfer to, we've got free shaping and we've got luring. When do we start to name commands, and when do we start to use clickers and things like that?
I'll charge a clicker or any marker word pretty early because that's how I'm going to like mark the free shaping. So for me, like within the first couple of weeks, you can start clicking or using a word to just make that powerful so that when they hear that sound, they're like, I'm getting rewarded and I'm coming back to my person to get it. So that's pretty quick. As far as like naming commands, I wait a while before I start naming commands. Honestly, once I can put a leash on the dog and do a little leash, start doing leash pressure with it, I will definitely do that before I name it. I want the dog to be able to perform the behaviors with just the leash pressure before I even name it. So, your dog, you free shape sit, the dog sits on its own, you mark it and reward it, the dog starts offering that behavior. You do that with all of your commands, and it depends on the dog. I'll start doing leash pressure pretty early, 12 or 14 weeks, just little pressure, you're not making them, they feel that tension, they come towards it, the pressure goes away. Once the dog's comfortable with that, because you got to remember, every dog is born with that opposition reflex where they naturally want to fight that pressure. And so you've got to teach them to not fight it first. Once I have that, then I'm going to start teaching them the sit, the down, the place with just nothing but putting a little pressure on them. A little tug here, the dog goes and does it. When the dog's nailing that, that's when I'll start naming it. So don't even worry about using the word sit or down or place or any of these things until you got the behavior. Because if you name it too early, you might name the wrong behavior, right? If the dog's not sitting consistently and you're trying to use sit, then to them, sit means kind of sit, right? Or do it sometimes. So that's a big mistake people make, I think, is going too early, trying to teach the dog the command right away. It doesn't mean a dog can't learn it, but let's teach them leash language first. And then we go to command. So it's free shaping, then luring, then leash pressure, and then naming the dog. That's at least my progression when it comes to teaching dogs commands.
Yeah, I think the saying goes, if you don't like it, don't name it, right? So, and wait, there's no rushing this. But Shane, what do you advise clients on with luring, free shaping, and markers?
It just, so many things can confuse a dog when it comes to the process of this. And the best thing I can tell people is read your dog and understand when they're ready. If they're not actively free shaping themselves into doing things, you're not ready to start putting names to it and giving them a stronger understanding or working through duration or distance or anything like that. You really want them to start almost free molding things, or at least doing it with the slightest pressure that tells me that they understand it before I start moving to naming things and then holding positions.
Yep, agreed. Damian.
Just something to add to that. So another reason why you don't want to name it before they can do it with like leash pressure is if they choose not to do it, you have no recourse, right? So let's say your dog's sitting pretty decently for you in a free shape or a lure, and you start naming it, and they're only doing it half the time when you name it. They're learning that they don't have to do it every time, and you can't correct that behavior. You can't say, oh, here we go, right? Add that little leash pressure. So there's no recourse if the dog starts to get distracted or chooses not to do the command. They're just learning they don't have to do it all the time. And so that's another reason people make that mistake with all commands, but especially with recall, right? They just unhook their dog and try to practice recall. And it's like, well, what are you going to do when that dog doesn't come to you? And that's true of a sit, right? We're not talking about punishing a dog. We're talking about being able to guide them. Say, oh, I think you're ready for a sit. I ask you to sit. You do it 5 times in a row, and the 6th time you don't. Well, I know I can always fall back on that leash pressure because you know that language. So I can be successful. We can turn that loss into a win. So don't name it until you have another form of communication that the dog is nailing. And some people use the 90% rule, and I like that. If your dog sits with slight pressure on the leash 9 out of 10 times without any issue, you can probably start moving on to the next phase of that.
Yeah, Shane.
Yeah, and just to touch on this too, little tips that help is like if you're monotone with your dog, you're going to get less engagement. I try to be really excitable and loud and just overly excited with the dog. And the keys to this too is short and sweet, you know, especially with a puppy. If you're bored, the dog's bored. So I'd rather have you do a 30-second session of super high engagement and then put the dog up at its highest level of excitement, because it's going to come out wanting more. And the key is put the dog up after the session, because if you just put them on your lap and hang out with them, your engagement just went down. You know, we want them to go up and come back out wanting more. And that's where, again, that structure comes in. But excitability is super important when it comes to working with your dogs, and puppies need, I'd rather see you do short sessions throughout the day and more than long sessions, because you can't keep engagement with a puppy for very long.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I don't want people to think that it's all like, I mean, it's all structure, but it's fun. Like, go out there, have fun, be a goofball with your dog, you know, use those high-pitched, annoying dog voices that we all have, you know, that's how you build all of this. And I really hope people are trying to picking up what we're saying is all of this is interconnected. Engagement builds obedience, you know, and builds drive and all of that. Speaking of obedience, let's talk to people about the obedience commands that we advise all puppies or new rescue dogs to have. Damian, what's your list?
Yeah, so for me, obedience is about having a communication system, because I want to be a leader. I want to tell my dog what to do versus waiting to tell them what not to do. And so to be able to, so obedience is a means to an end. It's not about, oh, my dog will hold a sit. It's about that I can have my dog hold a sit, and that's what I need them to do at this moment. So that's number one, is obedience isn't about just being a drill sergeant and having a fancy looking dog. It's a part of the communication system. It's how I'm going to communicate so I can be proactive with the dog. So that's the mindset I think you got to have. Once you have that mindset, then I think the basic, like the most important ones are your sit, down. Place is just the greatest command. It's the one you probably use the most, because it's a mutually exclusive position. Your dog cannot be on place and doing other things. So it's super key in teaching them, how to interact with the world, as well as managing their state of mind. So sit, down, place, which means go to your place. Heel, eventually, that's, down the line, is super important, though, mental stimulation with that. Recall is really important. And then a leave it command. And to me, a leave it is a general, like, whatever you're engaging with over here, or have your nose stuck in, walk away from it, is really important. Sure, there's other ones, absolutely. And those are our commands. And then there's a giant list of tricks, which are also fun. I like teaching my dogs tricks, because that engages them mentally. I don't get as bored. We can have fun. But let's get that strong core obedience, or that strong core language, so that we can then be successful later on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny, I can't believe when I was thinking about these topics, I totally forgot the leave it command. I think probably because I use it so much with my own dogs, I just forgot about that. But Shane, what's your list of obedience commands that you advise clients to have?
I mean, I have the same ones. The core ones are the sit, the down, the place command, a heel command. Damian does leave it. I say out. I mean, same thing, but different words. And obviously, depending on the dog and any behavioral problems, muzzles are going to be important, trained, because even if we get the dog to a good place, I want to set the people up for success with the right tools. So a muzzle command, if needed, if it is a dog that is at that point. Other than that, those core commands can develop into an advanced dog with time and distance, duration, reliability, exposure. So those are really all. If you want the greatest dog and the most well-behaved dog, you just build off of those foundational skills: the sit, the down, the place, and the loose leash walking. So
I'm really glad you brought up muzzle. I'll cue that for another question, but Damian, you had some add-ons.
Yeah, I just wanted to make another point about when we talk about like why it's important to build the language with like different other than just verbal, so having that leash pressure language, because okay, we teach them this core and they're getting good at that. Your dog understands the commands, even let's say they're at a place where they understand the verbal command, but they certainly understand like the leash pressure language. And now you want to teach them something new. The leash pressure is how you're going to do it. Your dog might not have a clue what you want from them, but they know I'm supposed to follow that leash or that tool, whatever tool that is. So that's what I mean by language. It's not just a way to get your dog to do obedience. It's like, okay, now I want to teach you to come between my legs. Well, you don't have a clue on how to do that, but you know that if I follow that leash, something good happens. And the dog also knows that the release of pressure means they did the right thing. So you can just guide that dog like a steering wheel right between your legs, and it's gonna be, if you get that foundation of the language, you're gonna be able to teach them anything you want using that language. So that's why it's so important to start with that before you ever give verbal commands, so that you have a way to move forward with them and teach them new exciting things. Also, the muzzle is absolutely, I can't believe yes, muzzle is key. It doesn't matter how sweet your dog is. It doesn't hurt to teach them and be conditioned to the muzzle. You never know when a dog gets scared or nervous or whatever that they might need that muzzle. So that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, so everybody makes this mistake too. I mean, you get this cute little bundle of joy comes home, and at some point they turn into a teenager. When can people expect that, and what type of behaviors do you typically see when they're turning into that bratty phase, when you have to start addressing some things that could be potentially dangerous?
So it depends on the dog, but honestly, it can be anywhere from 6 or 8 months to a year, 14 or 16 months. It depends on the dog. My German Shepherd was a late bloomer. It wasn't until it was after a year that he started being, a butthead to me in certain ways, But the behaviors you're going to see with that, a big one is they're going to start chewing on things. They're going to start testing. They're going to start getting into things they probably never even thought about getting into. They might start blowing you off every now and then for, on commands or different things like that. They might get what we call mouthy, meaning like, kind of chewing on you a little bit. They might get vocal, barking. Demand barking is a big one you're going to see, and things like that. And that's why it's also really important to have that structure already in place, so that, because that's going to be part of it, right? If your dog's being super naughty, we're just going to put them up, right? If we're not getting anywhere. If your dog's a year and it just comes out and is disengaged and blowing you off, it's like my first step is to put them back up, and we'll get them out later. But then also having, especially at that age. So for me, by a year, the dog's going to be on a tool. For sure. So then I can start using that to hold them accountable, because they've been trained on that language. And so not being able to correct a dog or have a way to say, nope, try again, is going to be really difficult to get past that stage without creating more problems. So if you have that language and you have tools involved at that age, then you're going to be able to hold them accountable, and they'll work their way through it. If you stick to your guns and you don't give in, the dog's going to mature, and you're going to start to see more biddable behavior from that dog as they get older. So it's just like, I imagine, just like kids, like you get past that phase, but you got to hold strong and stick to your guns and make sure you have a way to communicate effectively. Not only, hey, yeah, buddy, you did the right thing, but no, you need to try again, or that's unacceptable.
Yeah. So Shane, I was going to ask you this before you go into your question. Is we get a lot of people complaining that their dog's being really mouthy and putting teeth on their owners and kids and stuff like that. And I've seen a lot of advice on rescue sites and things like that, that you're supposed to make a loud squeaky sound when they bite into you. Could you explain to me, since that's a very common problem, puppies putting teeth on people, how should you handle that situation? And should you be making a loud squeaky sound?
No, making a loud squeaky sound is just going to more than likely put the dog into prey drive. So it's going to make them mouth more. It's going to make them want to bite more. They're going to think you're playing with them. So their engagement and their stimulation is going to go up. That's the worst thing you could probably do in that situation, because more than likely you are being playful with your hands too, and like pulling them away, which is creating drive and creating engagement with the dog. So basically, unknowingly, you're doing all the things you should to create that behavior and develop that behavior. That is not what I would be doing. It depends on the stage that I'm in with a dog and where they're at as far as going about that behavior. But one, if I have a really young puppy, you can just put it up, and simple as that. Two, You can make it uncomfortable for the dog, shove your hand into their mouth and push down on their tongue and make it uncomfortable. And the key with that is make sure that they pull away from you and you don't pull away from them, because once they make that decision, they're learning from that. If I'm making a decision, I'm not learning from that. So, that would be the way I would start. And then through understanding, through communication, if it continues, we can resort to other methods as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's tough when, we were talking 0 to 6 months, we typically will not use any kind of communication tool with any kind of dog unless it's a safety issue for dogs under 6 months, because we want to only use it after the dogs know what they should or shouldn't be doing. And that's the reason we're taking all these steps to shape these behaviors. Damian?
I just wanted to add to I agree with everything Shane said about dogs that are getting mouthy and stuff. But I also, a big one is, do they have something to chew on, right? Are they teething, and do they have access? I mean, for a puppy, I oftentimes will keep a chewed toy, not a playful toy, but something they can chew on that's safe and they're not going to swallow it. It's big enough and all that. Especially as they, 12, 16, 18 weeks old, as they're teething, and then, or producing something that is appropriate for them to play with. So if your dog comes out and is mouthy, great, let's grab a tug and let's see. Now, if the dog ignores a tug and goes back to your hand, then absolutely, let's make it not fun for them. Let's put them up. Let's do all those things. So having something appropriate for them to chew on and taking care of their teething is super important. And then exercising their drive. If you can notice, oh, this dog does have prey drive and likes to chase and bite things, well, we want to make sure we can't extinguish that drive. And if you just suppress it, and that's it, the dog, it's going to come out somewhere else. So making sure that we have something appropriate, whether that's teaching them fetch, whether that's tug, whatever it may be. So give them an outlet, make sure they have something appropriate to chew on. And then if you're doing that, then don't allow them to rehearse that behavior.
Yeah, that's all really good points about drive and all that, because we see that a lot in especially in metro areas where a dog is genetically built to do something and they're not allowed. It will come out eventually. One thing that we didn't talk about, and this is kind of circling around, is do you guys teach body touch? So, Shane, do you teach your dogs, okay, it's okay if I touch you here, show them your claws, that sort of thing? Let's talk to people about that.
As far as with the dog, as far as
prepping for vets and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that could be part of the free molding process. I like to squeeze their paws, reward, any problems where they're showing signs of pulling away, right away, I'm going to just start slow, give it a touch, reward, touch, reward, touch, reward, touch, reward, and create a positive engagement with that. So then down the line, that behavior or that feeling or whatever it may cause is non-existent at that point.
Yeah, Damian.
I agree with all that. Super important. Touch their ears, their neck, their toes. Also, something I've had success with is, I like to give my dogs, even younger dogs, it depends on how old, but 12 weeks, I'll start giving them sticks or bully sticks and bones and things. I don't let them eat the whole thing, obviously, but I hold it for them in the beginning. I have to hold it for them, and they learn to chew on it with me holding it. And what that does is creates good chewing behavior. Not every dog is a responsible chewer. I've seen dogs that are so dangerous. I get so scared they try to swallow that whole bully stick and they don't know how to appropriately chew it. So that's one way you can do it. It also kind of helps with some of that resource guarding that can happen, especially with high value stuff. So you might have a dog that has no problems, and then you give them a bully stick on their place and you walk over there, and at 12 or 14 weeks, they growl at you. I've seen it, right? So in the beginning, to add on to that, and you can also rub their paws and touch them and do all those things while you're doing this. Sit there on the couch with them or wherever on the floor and hold that chew for them while they chew it. And again, for me, that's a special time. I enjoy it, right? They're loving it. I'm loving it. So find those moments where you can train, even if let's say you do just want to hang out with your puppy for a little bit. Well, that's a great way to do it. So teach them to be responsible chewers and kind of teach them, help them with the resource guarding so they don't realize that that's not their bone, right? Because that's the only way some dog's going to guard something is when they think it's theirs. That's not their bone, it's yours, and you're letting them have it. And you can teach them multiple things while doing that.
So one of the other, I guess, big problems that I see, common problems that I see with people with puppies is they'll coddle fearful behavior. So when you've got a dog, you know, cowering in the corner because somebody drug a trash can across the yard or something like that, or something that's irrational, something they shouldn't be afraid of, they'll pick them up, they'll pet them, they'll tell them it's okay in a high voice. So outside of making yourself a giant chew toy, this is the number 2 one that I get a lot of. Shane, how do you handle that when you've got a puppy that's showing signs of fear for something they shouldn't be afraid of?
You know, with that, we got to build that up. Obviously, the worst thing we can do is coddle the behavior. So always remember, anytime you are encouraging petting, talking to a dog in a puppy voice and an excitable voice, you are rewarding that behavior. So we just want to make sure that, one, we aren't rewarding the behavior. The dog may be fearful, but if we reward the behavior, we're creating more problems in the long run, and we're going to create an even more fearful dog or a scared dog. So one, I want to build up to that. And it's like any exposure, you know, I recommend starting from far away. If I have something that, you know, the dog is fearful of, I'm going to start from a distance and start moving around very slightly. Maybe even just walking a dog around it from a long distance and rewarding and rewarding and rewarding, and eventually working my way closer to it. And eventually over time, repetition, understanding, and with that, building the dog's confidence up in it, they're going to become neutral at some point to it. But the most important thing is just exposure with time.
Yeah, Damian, how do you deal with the fear stuff?
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what Shane's said. You get what you pet. When you praise a dog, love is unconditional, praise is not, right? So when you praise a dog, you're not only rewarding what they're doing, you're rewarding how they're feeling and what they're thinking. So doing that is the worst thing you can do. You know, petting them and praising them when they're scared. So you want to change their emotional response to that. And so a couple ways you can do that is, like Shane said, is slowly expose them to it with their valuable rewards. But also you can reward recovery, right? If your dog gets startled and 5 or 10 seconds later it gets curious and engages with it, reward that. Don't reward the startled part of it or the scared part. Reward the recovery, because I don't care how environmentally stable a dog is, there's something that's going to spook them at some point, and it's about recovery. It doesn't matter that your dog got spooked by the super loud noise out of nowhere, but in 3 seconds they recovered from it. That's fine, right? So reward the recovery is super important, and change their emotional response. And you're going to do that through the rewards, you know, putting them in a situation where they're around those triggers and rewarding them, and setting up the environment first, right? So I think Shane touched on this earlier. Set up a little obstacle course, right? A couple empty plastic bottles and a tarp, and start luring your dog over all that stuff. And your dog will start to learn that, hey, I can handle this, but also I trust my person. Like, this makes me nervous, but they've never let me down, right? They've always been there and worked me through it. So that advocacy is part of it as well. The dog can get spooked, but they're like, I'm with my person, I'm feeling confident. And then if they do get scared, we don't want them to, this is why in controlling your environment, you don't want them to run away into the other room and hide under the bed. So if you controlled your environment and they can't get away from it, let them be scared and then go at them when they're recovering. And if it's something they can't really recover from, okay, then we're going to set up a training exercise for that in the future.
That's excellent. I do have one other thing. So we have a puppy head start program at Cobra K9, and we help a lot of people with, you know, new owners with new puppies. I do want to make something 100% clear, is you can't offload your relationship with your dog to anyone else. That includes a trainer. So what should people expect when they send their brand new puppy away for puppy training, as far as what type of things will that dog learn and what will they not get out of that? And meaning, you know, what are proper expectations of what the dog's actually going to learn, and what are they going to come home not doing?
Yeah, so that's super important. I always tell clients, I can give you the communication system, I can show you how to communicate with your dog, but I can't give you a relationship with your dog. So that's number one. So expectations are, listen to what your trainer says. The training part is important when the puppy's with me, but when the dog comes home, that's where it really starts. So I'm going to set them up for success, but you got to follow the roadmap I set out for you. So that's number one expectation, is that they're still going to have to do the bulk of the work. We're going to get the head start going, right? And we're going to do it in a way that's really efficient, because we do this all the time. So we're going to set them out on the right track. but when they come home, it's going to be super important. What I'm going to teach if you send your dog from 8 to 12 weeks to me, your dog is going to get a real good start on potty training. Your dog is going to start to learn to work for its food. Your dog is going to get some environmental experience and exposure. Your dog is I'm going to start shaping behaviors, right? I'm sure that dog's going to be able to sit with the lure and down with the lure and place with the lure, but your dog is not going to go to its place on command when it comes home from our 2-week puppy program, right? Like, that's just not the expectation, because like I said, we might not even get to a place where I'm using commands. I'm probably still just doing leash pressure. I'm probably just still luring. I'm still free shaping. I'm charging marker words. I'm teaching them value in the person who's working. I'm teaching them value in the rewards. And of course, they get to go to some new place and become confident in that. So you're going to get confidence, you're going to get exposure, you're going to get shaped behaviors, you're going to get a great start on your potty training and things like that. But the real magic is we give lessons afterwards, and we're going to have the roadmap set up. That's probably the biggest thing you're going to get is the guidance. And to be honest, that when your dog comes for that start of the puppy training, life's tough. We all have jobs. That can be the hardest part, the first 2 weeks, so it can be great to send your dog right off the bat. It's actually one of the best things you can do. But you're not going to get a trained dog when the dog comes home. The dog is going to be set up for success. And then we as trainers are going to guide you along the way.
Yeah, Shane, again, we call it puppy head start for a reason. We're just giving that head start, but the heavy lifting's got to be done by the owners. How else do you explain, what kind of realistic expectations do you set for clients when you get a puppy?
Yeah, and I think the expectation falls on coming home, the owners too. I think, us as trainers, we've done it so many times. We're going to get the dog to a manageable place, in a good place. We're going to build their confidence. I mean, Damian hit everything on the dot as far as that goes. I think the big thing is what happens when the dog comes home, because we are going to give you that roadmap. We're going to give you all the proper things to do to engage with your dog, to create that relationship with your dog, to develop the dog's obedience. But I think a lot of the work, especially as a puppy, is gonna be on the owner's hands, and they need to understand that structure is super important. And if you work and your dog's in a crate for 8 hours a day, for the older dogs, obviously puppies are going to be a little bit different. It's okay. Structure is more important than freedom, because we're going to create a routine that's going to set you guys up for success. But it does take time. And I think that's the most important thing that people need to understand is training a dog does not happen overnight. We structure the dog. We set the dog up for success. I always like to tell people when we are training dogs, every time you get a dog out, it is, be intentional with it. Follow through with every command you give them. And if the dog does not want to work for you, put them up. Make it easy on yourself. Structure the dog while you're home. That's a big part of this, is making sure that we are structuring the dog even when you're home, not setting it up every time you go home, and give that dog an understanding of what that looks like when you leave. So I think a lot of it will fall on the people as far as continuing on with the dog's training, but it's just making sure that they follow through is going to be what's going to be the most successful thing for them.
Yeah, that's 100% spot on. And so people know, like, I have super OCD, and it's been a long time since I've had a puppy, but literally I had a training journal. I had all my training goals written down, and then I would keep track of like what we worked on, his progress, when we could reset those expectations and training goals. So even though my goals were different than, somebody watching this, I really do encourage people to do that before you get a puppy. Sit down, write down what you want this dog to do or be able to do with you, and then reassess those goals. Your puppy isn't going to be able to do it right away, but if you do all this work, this foundation work out the bat, you will succeed in the long term. You guys, do you have any other final tips? There's so much with puppies. I feel like we could go on forever, but Damian, do you have any final tips or tricks for people with how to bring in their new puppy?
I think one thing I would say to add to all this is you can even find a trainer to help you find the puppy that's good. Maybe you don't even know what the right puppy is for you, right? Or where to get a puppy from a reputable breeder. I've had clients reach out, after they've done training and they want my help finding a puppy, and it's like the greatest thing ever. Like, yes, I will help you find the puppy that's right for you. So maybe it can be overwhelming when you start doing research. What kind of dog do I want? What are their drives? All this stuff. Talk to a professional, reach out. We will help you find the dog. We'll help you train the dog. It can be a whole lifetime that we're involved in this with this dog. So you're not alone. Just reach out, find a reputable trainer, somebody who's going to help you can build a relationship with and set you up. So don't be afraid if you're a little overwhelmed to find someone to help you.
Yeah, it's absolutely a journey. And that's what we always like to tell clients is we are invested in their journey with their dog and we want to be a part of it. But Shane, any final tips or tricks for new puppy or rescue dog owners?
Just hang in there. You'll get through it. Yeah, I think it's, everything that we kind of discussed is going to be kind of the route you want to go. Structure is key. Engagement is key. If you want a dog that ignores everything else, follow kind of the things that we're talking about, and dogs will progress. It just takes time,
I'm glad I was on mute because I literally laughed out loud when you said hang in there. It is like bringing home a new baby. So just be prepared, but it's a fun process. I encourage people to be mindful of the moment they're in. It can be frustrating. It could be a lot of work, but there will be a day in time where you'll miss those puppy days. Believe me, it happens too quickly. So you guys, this was awesome. And again, we could go on and build on each one of these points, but we did this in December because there's a lot of new puppies and dogs that are getting ready to come home. So we hope you enjoyed this. If you need any help, please hit us up at KoruK9.com, all of our social platforms, KoruK9, and we will be back again soon. Thank you all very much.